Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. It's your boy D Black coming back at you with another Raw review. Raw tonight. I keep trying to tell myself I don't want to say it sucked, but Raw tonight really sucked. I mean, we have a few weeks left for WrestleMania, and tonight's show showed nothing for any build up for WrestleMania. I mean, it's just sad. I don't understand it. But let's get into the review. All right. We have Adam Pearce coming out talking about Seth Rollins, and about all the guys that come out in the mask and everything. And he's saying that he knows Seth Rollins is out. So he apparently called Seth Rollins out to come out to the ring, so they can talk. All right. And then a guy in the black mask comes out. You would think that was Seth Rollins. Then another one comes out. Then another one comes out. And then by the time that one comes out, there's like about 10 of them out. And they're all around the ring, just coming in. They get into the ring, they frolic around and stuff like that. And then they all jump out of the ring. And there's only one left in the ring. And we all know who that one left in the ring is. And so that was Seth Rollins. Then Adam Pearce goes on to tell Seth Rollins that, hey, look, you know, that he doesn't appreciate, what Seth has been doing and stuff, as far as coming in, attacking, the Vision, taking out first um, Braun Breaker, and then taking out Bronson Reed and stuff, And this is all the Vision's fault because they first took out Seth Rollins, so he's just back, for revenge. But anyway, um, Adam Pearce is saying that, look, he's telling Seth that he's not, cleared medically and that he's taking a risk and stuff like that, and, that the fact that he did have surgery on his shoulder about, 5 months ago, and he's not cleared to be in the ring, and that there's always a chance, from what he's doing that, there could be an injury that he can get hurt, that could take him out. And then he's going on and saying that what if the Vision get in the ring, and do something to him, to take him out, to get hurt, what's he going to do then? Because all of a sudden that would be the end of Seth freaking Rollins. And as he's saying that, then how comes the Vision? Logan Paul and Austin Theory. And then, Logan Paul is telling that, telling Seth that, when they get in the ring that they're going to destroy him, they're going to hurt him and stuff like that. And then um, Austin Theory says that there's a bullet with his name on it, and they were going to kick his head in and stuff like that. And so as they're getting into the ring, talking all they yak to Seth Rollins, and out comes LA Knight. And then LA Knight just comes out and he just goes forward and he just, you know, well, before LA Knight gets in there, as the Vision is about ready to climb into the ring, then all of the other black mask guys gather around the ring and they flock around the ring and mix up and everything like that. And then that by that point, Seth is out of the ring with all the rest of them and they all split and go off in their different directions and stuff. And then as that's happening, then LA Knight comes out and then he attacks, the Vision. And then the Vision gets, on top of him because, it would be 2-on-1. Then all of a sudden here comes Jimmy and Jay Uso. They come out, they get the upper hand on the Vision, and they leave the ring a little bit beat up and stuff like that and everything. And then we had an interview backstage with Kathy Kelly, talking to the Usos, and then she's asking them, do they have anything to say to CM Punk? Because the Usos was about ready to leave after they had the little conflict with the Vision. She asked them what they're going to do or are they going to say anything to CM Punk for what he said to Roman Reigns, and about their family. And then Jimmy says, yes. And so they walk back in, so they're not going to be leaving. And now with this gauntlet match, I mean, let me get back to the division in the Usos and LA Knight. I mean, as we know, they've been just going at it for a while. I mean, it's been a year. So I don't even know how they're even going to get this going because there's only two left in the division. And then you got the Usos and you got LA Knight. So if they're going to do up a match, I mean, is there going to be a match against, Austin Theory and Logan Paul against Jimmy and Jay for the titles and stuff? But I think that's already been taken care of, so I mean, I don't know. It's all confusing to me. I don't know what Triple H is doing, as far as this is going on, because right now it's not making any sense. I mean, zero sense. And it has nothing to do as far as leading up to WrestleMania. Nothing. Absolutely zero. Okay, and then we have a gauntlet match for the women's IC Intercontinental Championship. So they started off with Lara Valkyria and Io Sky. I mean, this match was, I guess the first match, it was pretty good. I mean, it started out pretty good. Lara got up on Io, and Io got up on Lara. And then Io beats Lara. And then out comes Raquel Rodriguez. And then it's Io Sky against Raquel Rodriguez. And because we know the gauntlet matches that there are like 5 matches, and whoever wins the match, they could go on. The other person, leaves, and then the next person comes out, and they go, right into the match and stuff like that. So this is what's going on as far as this gauntlet match is concerned. And Io Sky, she does beat Lara Valkyria. I mean, they were in the ring for about a good 7-8 minutes, really, really, really putting it on. And then you got Io and then Raquel Rodriguez. And, Rodriguez is a powerhouse woman. So that match, with them was pretty good. Then you got Liv, who came out to interfere into that match. And then as she was interfering, then out comes Stephanie Valkyrie, and so they fight off, into the back and stuff. And then Io grabs Raquel off the off the ropes and everything, and then she puts it down. Then she does, the moonsaw, and she pins Raquel. So she beats Raquel. And then after that, Raquel destroys Io Sky. I mean, she destroys Io Sky after losing to her and stuff. And then out comes Ivory Niles, and Ivory Niles gets a quick pin over Io and stuff. And that quick pin, then out comes Bayley. So it's Bayley and Ivory Niles, fighting for the number one contender to meet AJ Styles. Well, not number one contender. I'm sorry. She's just facing Ivy Niles, you know, and then Bayley beats Ivy Niles with the Bailey to belly drop, and then out comes Oscar, and then Oscar and Bayley they have a pretty decent match. I mean, it was pretty good. They were going back and forth and stuff like that, and then Kyrie Sane comes out to try to interfere, and then Lara Valkyria comes out and drop kicks the hell out of her and stuff. And then Bayley hits Oscar with the rose plant for the win. So Bayley wins, and she's the number one contender, to face AJ Lee for the IC title. I believe next week. I don't think these matches or anything that's going to be leading into WrestleMania, but something's about ready to happen with all this going down and stuff. And then you get the Roman Reigns and CM Punk promo of the last two um, encounters that they had and stuff, talking to each other. And then you get Maxine Dupree coming out, and she attacks Natalie. Now, the reason she's attacking Natalie because Natalie caused her to lose, a shot at the IC title against Becky Lynch. And since that's happening, then Maxine, and I don't know what happened with Natty and Maxine while Natty was trying to was training her to beat Becky Lynch for the IC title. And I don't know what happened in between there, but for some reason, now he's mad at Maxine, and so they've been battling and stuff, couple of disqualification matches and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully, that's not going to be a match set up for anything as far as WrestleMania is concerned. Hopefully that'll be something again next week because they already had a match a couple of weeks ago and stuff and just went to nothing. Maxine got knocked out in that and stuff. So we'll see what happens there. Then we get Danhausen talking to the original El Grande Americano about what he's going to be teaching them and stuff like that. And I guess he got on the original El Grande Americano's nerves and everything. And then Danhausen said, "Well, if you're going to do this, then you're going to be hexed and stuff like that." Then we get the match with Penta, and it was supposed to be the original El Grande Americano, but I guess that didn't happen because the Ludwig Kaiser version of El Grande Americano comes out against Penta, and that match it started out okay. I mean, Penta first before the match even started was talking and everything, saying thank you to everybody, and stuff, and that he's going to be a good champion. He's going to bring a prestige name to the Intercontinental title and stuff. But if he's going to do that, it could have been a better match than he had tonight with it and stuff. I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't a great match. It just made zero sense having this match, and Penta ends up hitting the Ludwig Kaiser El Grande Americano with the Mexican Destroyer for the win. And then you get the Stephanie Bakira film promo talking about Liv Morgan and how Liv Morgan, obtained being the person who she is as far as wrestling is concerned, and then talk about how herself, Stephanie Bakira, and what she went through to become a professional wrestler and stuff, and saying that she's going to have blood, sweat, and tears and everything, and when she does see Liv Morgan at WrestleMania, that she's gonna, she's gonna bring it. She's gonna beat Liv and everything, and she told Liv to bring, everything that she's got because she's gonna bring the fire and destroy Liv Morgan and retain as woman champion and stuff. And then we get the promo with Liv, she's making, a comment about what Stephanie Bakir said about her, in the film promo and stuff. And then Dom shows up and he tells the Judgment Day, you know, that he's asking first of all where Finn Balor is at, and then he says that he has something to say, and so they go off to the ring. And as they're in the ring, Dom is saying that he demands a rematch, with Penta because he lost because Finn Balor. So he's blaming Finn Balor for the title loss that he had, that happened last week. And then Finn Balor comes out with JD McDonough, and then Dom's asking Finn, where has he been and stuff, and why has he gotten him a rematch? Has he talking to Adam Pearce, to get a rematch, for his IC title and stuff. And then, Finn just goes on and he said that, that Dom was right, that he admits that it was his fault, for Dom losing and everything. I guess when JD McDonough when Dom told JD McDonough to get the hammer, Finn stopped him from doing it and stuff. And then, the Mexican destroyer hit Dom, and he lost the title and stuff. So, and then Finn is like trying to tell Dom, he said, look, he's basically telling Dom to grow up. Like, you don't have to have anybody back him up. He can do things by himself. And he said, he let Dom know that, hey, by the way, that he does have his back, and that they're family and stuff, But then he continues on to tell, Dom to, that he needs to fight his own battles. And we know in the Judgment Day that's not true because none of them ever fought their own battles. They've always cheated, to retain or get ahead and stuff. So, and then Fink continues on and says all he's been doing is trying to help Dom, to believe in himself, basically, And then he said, you know what, your dad was right, or he must have been right when he said about Dom, calling him a spoiled brat, and then Dom slaps Finn Balor, and then Finn Balor Pele kicks him, and then attacks Dom, and as he's attacking Dom and everything, you know, JD McDonough hits Finn with a clothesline, and then they just pounce on Finn. They stop beating him down with help from Raquel and Liv. They just beat him down, and then they leave the ring. So that portion of the Judgment Day is destroyed, just like they did when the organization started, as far as like Damian Priest, and then back when uh who was it? I can't think. Edge, when Edge, started it out and stuff like that. So the Judgment Day has been there for a while. There's been a lot of turns in the Judgment Day and stuff like that. So this is, one of the things that they do. And so now they turned on Finn Balor. And then we got Adam Pearce and Javon Evans, and Adam Pearce is telling Javon Evans, how great he's been doing and stuff like that, and that good things, are going to come his way. And then, Kofi Kingston comes out and he starts talking to him, and I guess Kofi kind of says that, since his partner, you know, um, Xavier Woods is out with an injury, he wants to try to partner up with Javon Evans, and, Javon Evans is a little bit skittish about it. So, Kofi sends his hands out to try to shake, but Javon Evans didn't shake his hand. So we'll see what comes up about that. And then we get another backstage with Kathy Kelly, talking to Lara Valkyria and Bayley, and then Bayley saying, when she beats AJ Lee, that she promises Lara that she will get, a first shot, at the title and stuff. And then she goes on to say that, Bayley is saying that AJ Lee, if it wasn't for her, the women's division wouldn't be what the women's division is. I don't agree with that, but it is what it is. There are other women that have really, made the women's division, what the women's division is. AJ Lee was one of them, or part of it, but not the reason why and stuff. So looks like Bayley and AJ Lee will be going at each other next week, for the women's IC title match. Something's going to happen. I know it will. That will carry it on probably into WrestleMania. Then we got Femi, Oba, and Rusev. Last week, well, a couple of weeks, Rusev been getting into the face of Adam Pearce about Rusev. And so now they have their match, and as you would expect, Rusev dogged and beat the crap. Not Rusev, but Oba Femi dogged and beat the crap out of Rusev. Oh man, so that fall from grace. Oh man, when Oba tossed Rusev, it was crazy. He tossed about a 265, 270 guy halfway across the ring. That was insane. And then he picks him up. He picks Rusev up with no problem and hits him with the fall from grace and wins the match. Oh, wow. And then we get the CM Punk promo. CM Punk comes out, you know, um, saying that he was actually really unsure how the crowd was gonna receive him and stuff because on account of what he said to Roman Reigns, about burying him next to his dad and stuff. Those are some real harsh words because Roman Reigns and CM Punk went at each other last week, and not just last week, but a couple of weeks before that, they went at each other too. And Roman's telling CM Punk, you know, that he hates him. And they've been going at it. So this is one of the matches that I like that's going to be coming up, for WrestleMania. So this one I'm anticipating to see. I want to see what this is going to be like, and I'm hoping with the fire that they have as far as words is concerned, is going to be the same fire in the ring that they get to when they wrestle against each other. And then Jimmy and Jay Uso come out, and Jay is telling CM Punk, to apologize, for what he said, to Roman and stuff. And then, Jimmy's telling Roman that it's not about, Roman Reigns. It's about the disrespect um, and everything. And, Jimmy goes on, and says that, he has a lot of respect for CM Punk. And there's that word, respect. I think they must use it quite a few times. But then he said, like, hey, like, I have respect for you. But then, he disrespected, his Uncle Sika, you know, saying what he said to Roman. And then Punk says then, to the family, that how much he respects, the family as far as, Roman Reigns and the Usos and the Fatu's and in the family line and stuff, because he's been there and everything. He knew Alpha and he knew Sika and stuff, and he babysat their younger brother Lance and stuff. And I mean, he said a lot of stuff and everything. Then finally he came up and then, he apologized, you know, to Jimmy and Jay, but then he went on to say that he was sorry. He said, "I'm sorry," and everything. And then he goes on to say that he was sorry on how Roman Reigns had, treated him, treated both, Jimmy and Jay, and not just Jimmy and Jay, but their whole entire bloodline, how he disrespected him and how he carried on and stuff like that, And then again, Jay grabs the mic and he said, "It's not about Roman Reigns. It was about the disrespect and stuff, And then CM Punk gets in there and stuff. And then he says, look, he basically says everything about Roman Reigns, how Roman Reigns is, tired and how Roman Reigns never shows up for a match or anything like that, and that he's a fighting champion and stuff like that, and he said, look, I wouldn't be saying this, to you guys, I'd be saying to Roman, but now he's out here saying to Roman's, talking to his, oh man, he disrespected him again, talking to his young boys, and and so I guess, and then shoves the mic in Jay's chest, and then he gets clocked by Jimmy and stuff, and so they look at each other, and I know Jay wanted to jump on him and stuff, but Jimmy kind of held him back, and so, but this is gonna be interesting to see what happens. I mean, they're really building up a lot and stuff. I mean, according to the disrespect from CM Punk and what he did say to Roman about putting him next to his father, in the grave and stuff like that. That was pretty deep. That was real personal and stuff. I don't know if they put that as far as into a work or anything like that. But I was really, 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 really sorry. And I know they're trying to put seats, put butts in the seats, for WrestleMania. So I guess they're gonna have to get as deep as they can, just like with Jade and Rhea and stuff. I guess you gotta have some things that come out personal that may not be as personal as you think, but they gotta sell tickets, and I understand and stuff. So with that, I'm hoping that we get better shows and better content because lately it's been a mess. So, but anyway, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, leave a comment. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Just talk to me and let me know. So, thank you for watching. God bless. Deuces. And I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.